Hey everybody, this is Matt, and in today's video, I have for you my Labrynth deck profile for Master Duel. That's right, this is my very first deck profile for the Labrynth archetype, the Labrynth deck, and it's going to be for Yu-Gi-Oh Master Duel. I am playing this deck in the TCG, but we're going to hold off on putting a deck profile for that, simply because, I want to actually get like a solid first place victory at a locals, which honestly, I haven't been going to locals since the Shizu came out. The Shizu cards, I think I've gone to 2 locals total. Since then, and I've been mostly playtesting with like Crystal Beast, right? But anyway, yeah. So Labrynth, it is out of Master Duel. It is nowhere near full power. It's nowhere near the power level of what Labrynth is like in the TCG right now. But it is a good deck, and you should play it. I think it's better than Eldlich, and especially in the current format, it can run some cards that Eldlich cannot. That makes it really powerful and basically just able to like stomp Runick, right? So anyway, so let's get into this deck profile. So, like my previous deck profiles, what I've been doing is I walk through the deck building process, right? Rather than showing you the whole list. So if you want to see the whole list, skip to the end of the video, I suppose. But yeah. So let's start with just the Labrynth package. So there's a lot of Labrynth cards, right? So I'm just gonna type in here Labrynth. There's a lot of cards here, right? I pulled a lot of these just from like the packs, right? But the only ones you really need is you need 3 copies of Ariana, 2 copies of Lovely Labrynth, 2 copies of Labrynth, and 3 copies of Welcome Labrynth. That's it. 10 cards is your Labrynth package. You don't need any more than this. You don't need the stove. You don't need the chandelier. You don't need the coup clock. These are all you need. So you might ask, wait, why don't you run the chandelier or the coup clock? Well, because let's read some of the costs of each of these cards' abilities. Quick effect: send this card from your hand or field to graveyard and discard a card. Blah blah blah. Chandelier. Send this card from your hand or field to graveyard, discard a card. Blah blah blah. Coup clock. You can discard this card. This one doesn't discard another card, so it's a little better. But basically, we don't like card effects that make us discard. We are a control deck. We're a trap deck. We do not like discarding cards. This is also true in Eldlich. We want to discard as little as possible, but also it's like, you have an opening 5-card hand. 2 of them are dedicated to like one of these cards. So you're basically trading 2 for 1, and it's like, it kind of feels bad. The only card that you would want to discard possibly is like if you open Lovely Lady or Lovely Labrynth of the Silver Castle in your opening hand, then yeah, maybe you want to discard this to the graveyard. But most of the time, you don't want to discard anything else. So yeah, honestly, you don't need these other monsters. Instead of these monsters, these little chandeliers and coup clocks or whatever, I'd rather just have more trap cards, right? So let's break down each of these cards, what they do, and why they're good. So, Ariana the Labrynth Servant. This is your normal summon. That's right. This is a deck that has a normal summon, folks. How crazy is that? So let's read what this says. If this card is normal or special summon, you can add a Labrynth card from your deck to your hand, except Ariana. Okay. So basically, this is your Stratos, your Searcher, right? Most of the time, you'll be searching either Welcome Labrynth or the Field Spell, depending on what you already have in your hand. So the Welcome Labrynth and Field Spell go together, right? So they're not as good alone. Although if you only had access to one, Welcome Labrynth is definitely the better one, which I'll get into soon. So yeah, Ariana, 1600 attack, which is very respectable. 2100 defense. This is a very respectable stats for a level 4, which has a really good effect. Let's read the second part of her effect, which honestly is the even better one. So, if another monster leaves the field by your normal trap effect, except during the damage step, you can draw a card and then apply the following effect. From your hand, either special summon 1 fiend monster or set 1 spell trap. So, and each of these effects is mutually exclusive. You can only use 1 of these effects per turn, only once that turn. So, this is nuts. So, if this is just sitting on your field, you normal summon it, you search the thing. Now, it's just going to draw you cards. Every time you blow up one of their monsters with using one of your normal traps, you get to just draw a card. Straight up, just draw a card. How crazy is this, right? And if you happen to have like Lovely Labrynth in your hand, you can also special summon it after you draw the card, right? So it's just really good. Like, is it worth 3 of? Maybe I'm not 100% sold or set on the ratios. Maybe this can be a 2 of, but the problem is that a card like Welcome Labrynth, which I'm going to get into, requires you to have Labrynth monsters to summon off Welcome Labrynth, and if you don't, it kind of does nothing. So yeah, I definitely feel like 3 is a good ratio in this case. Although I might cut this to 2 in the future. Stay tuned for that. But just because you just need targets for Welcome Labrynth, right? In the OCG, they have a card called Big Welcome Labrynth, which allows you to summon special summon these Labrynth monsters from the graveyard, not just the deck, right? So maybe in that scenario, I'll cut Lariana down to 2. But yeah, she's really good. Definitely the best non-boss monster of the deck. So yeah, 3 of her, I think, is the way to go for now. Alright, our boss monster, Lovely Labrynth of the Silver Castle. Similar to Eldlich, we're only running 2 copies of this because this card is a big old brick in the hand. You almost never want this to be in your hand ever, ever, ever. But because it's kind of our only boss monster, and we don't yet have access, at least in Master Duel, to the other, to Lady Labrynth of the Silver Castle, right? Lady Labrynth is the better boss monster, and it will eventually replace Lovely Labrynth. So when Lady Labrynth comes out, this will go to 1 copy because Lady Labrynth is so much better. And Lady Labrynth is the opposite of a brick. You want to see her in your hand. She's great. But Lovely Labrynth, you do not want to see it in your hand. You want this to be in your deck most of the time because you want to summon it off of Welcome Labrynth. So let's read what this card says. So while it's on the field, your opponent cannot activate monster effects to respond to the activation of your normal trap cards. So yeah, you don't have to worry if this is on your field. You don't have to worry about their Baron de Fleur like negating like their Baron de Fleur hits the field. You can like try to punishment or like get rid of it. They can't respond with Baron de Fleur's negate if this card's on the field. It's crazy, right? Really good, highly underrated. I would say this effect doesn't come up as much because basically if you summon this card, like their field is probably already cleared in the first place, or like they already don't have like monster negates, right? Now let's read the other effects, which are pretty good. You can use each of the following effects of Lovely Labrynth of the Silver Castle once per turn. You can target 1 normal trap in your graveyard. Send it to your field, but it cannot be activated unless you control a fiend monster. So, literally, this monster can recycle your trap cards from your graveyard onto your field. So, if you just use Dogmatic Punishment on the previous turn or whatever, you can use her effect to put Dogmatic Punishment from your graveyard back onto your field. How insane is that? And remember, we have 3 copies of Ventus in our extra deck, which means that's just like a free pop 2 every turn. Crazy, right? This could also recycle Welcome Labrynth, although most of the time you don't have to recycle Welcome Labrynth using this effect. This can recycle Compulsory. This can recycle, yeah, it's just great. Torrential Tribute, and also the spicy normal trap that we have in our deck, which you'll see later. So, yeah, really good ability. The only downside is if she gets killed or if you have no fiend monsters, you can't activate that trap. So, don't let her get killed, or that trap will be unactivatable. And then the last part says. If another monsters leaves the field by your normal trap effect, that includes your own monsters, you can destroy 1 card on your opponent's hand at random or their field. So she has a non-targeting destroyed for either a card in your opponent's hand or on their field. I like the fact that it's non-targeting, right? So, yeah, oftentimes if you plan on using Dogmatic Punishment or Compulsory or one of the other cards to get rid of an opponent's monsters, before you do, bring her out, and then you'll get to pop another card. So, yeah, really good. So she's currently the current boss monster of the deck. We only need 2 of her. Eventually, she will drop to 1 once we get access to Lady Labrynth. So, all right, the field spell. This field spell, Labrynth, very creative name. It says if you activate a set Welcome Labrynth normal trap, you can add this additional effect onto that card's effect at resolution. After that, destroy 1 card. So basically, this makes it so that Welcome Labrynth not only summons a monster from the deck, but it also pops a card. Non-targeting, by the way. And in the second part of this field spell, which is probably arguably the better part, if you activate a non-Labrynth normal trap card, so any normal trap that's not Welcome Labrynth, right? You can special summon a fiend monster from hand or graveyard, and you can use this effect once per turn. So this is a way that you can either get if you don't have Welcome Labrynth, you can get a Lovely Labrynth on the field, or you can revive her from the graveyard, right? And then finally, the main trap card. This is the elixir of the deck. Welcome Labrynth. Let's read what it says. Special summon 1 Labrynth monster from your deck. Also, until the end of the next turn after this card resolves, you cannot special summon monsters from the deck or extra deck except fiend monsters. Note, remember that elixir locks you out of, says you can only summon zombie monsters. This says you can only summon fiends if you're summoning from the deck or extra deck, which means you can literally summon Lord of the Heavenly Prison after this card. So normally in the Eldlich deck, if you use Elixir, you're locked out of summoning Lord of the Heavenly Prison. But this does not lock you out of summoning Lord of the Heavenly Prison. And I like that Konami did this because I'm guessing that they realized that Lord of the Heavenly Prison is a good card for this deck, and that they didn't want to lock you out of summoning Lord because of this card. So, and then it says, if a monster leaves the field by your normal trap effect, so this is any monster, right? While this card is in your graveyard, except the turn it was sent there. You can set this card. How crazy is that? Like I said in my Adventures of video, imagine if Elixir recycled itself, right? So in Elixir in the graveyard on a future turn banishes itself to set a golden land trap, and then you use that golden land trap, goes to graveyard, it banishes on the subsequent turn to grab Elixir. So Elixir can theoretically recycle itself, but this can recycle itself every turn, like just by existing in the graveyard. This is so crazy. And if you saw my Adventures of video, you saw that there's so many interactions you can do to cheat this card out, right? Which I'll discuss briefly later. But yeah. By the way, you can also get rid of your own monsters. So if you have an Ariana on the field, you already used her on summon effect. You can literally like get her off the field or bounce her back to your own hand with like compulsory evacuation device to trigger this effect in the graveyard to reset itself. So this card is even like more resilient to Ash, right? Like, oh, you know, Ash Blossom like slightly delays Elixir. Yeah, Ash can be used against this card, but it does very little, right? Like next turn you can have this up and running again. So yeah, great card, really good. Not quite as good as the Big Welcome Labrynth, which will come out, which is only out in the OCG, is not even out in the TCG. But yeah, I think pretty sure we're gonna run both this one and the Big Welcome Labrynth whenever it comes out, because it's just such a good card, especially combo with the field spell. So yeah, so we're at 2. So this is our Labrynth package. 10 of our 40 cards is actually the Labrynth stuff. So all right, let's get into. So this is our Labrynth Core, right? This is the core of the deck. Don't mess with these ratios. Let's get into the core of a control deck. Cards I think should be in most, if not all, control decks. So we have, that's right, 3 Lords of the Heavenly Prison. This card is cracked. It protects your back row. It can summon itself as a body after you use Welcome Labrynth. Like, it's just, there's just so many applications of it. It's just, and it can and when it hits the field, while it's revealed, you can set a spell trap of your choice from your deck to the field. A lot of times you can Lord of the Heavenly Prison and set Welcome Labrynth. Yeah, I think this card needs an explanation. If you've seen my Eldlich content, yeah, just play 3 of these. It's just amazing, right? Especially in the Runick matchup. All right, next cards that we want is 2 Pots of Extravagance and 2 Pots of Duality. So yeah, that pretty much rounds out all the spells in our deck. So yeah, this deck does have more spells than Eldlich. Like, just like because we're using the Labrynth field spell. But like, imagine if Cursed Eldland was a field spell instead of a continuous spell. I would have way less problem with it. I mean, Cursed Eldland still sucks, but and it's much closer to this Labrynth card. But just imagine if it was this field spell, how much better it would be than being a continuous spell. I would be really annoyed if Labrynth was a continuous spell rather than a field spell. So, yeah, 6 spells. That's for our whole deck. Extrav, we just want to draw 2. We don't care that much about extra deck, and we don't care what 2 cards we draw. If you're like good control decks, any draw 2 will be a good draw 2, right? And Duality is not mutually exclusive with Extrav, but yeah, allows you to excavate 3, right? And guess what? Duality locks you out of special summons, but most of the time, you don't want to special summon. Like, if it's your first turn, you're not special summoning anyway. Worst case, you're normal summoning Ariana, right? You can Power Duality and then normal summon Ariana. It does not lock you out of that, so yeah. You'd love to see the Power Duality. Other core cards of a control deck, 3 copies of Solemn Strike. This card is cracked. I don't see any reason to ever run fewer than 3 copies. It's not once per turn. Literally negate a summon or a monster effect and destroy it, right? Burn the Fleur tries to negate one of your cards, you say no. They try to summon Access Code or Zeus to clear your board, you say no, right? So many applications of Solemn Strike. This is such a good card. Don't mess with this ratio. You want to see 3, you will play 3. All right. I'm also running 2 copies of Trap Trick, just like in my Eldlich deck. 2 copies is what you want here, because basically, like, you're gonna have a lot of normal spells, or sorry, normal traps, and 2 copies of Trap Trick is literally just 2 more copies of it. Guess what, folks? Welcome Labrynth is a normal trap. So we went from having 3 copies of Welcome Labrynth to having 2. The fact that it banishes from the deck doesn't matter, especially since again, Welcome Labrynth recycles itself, right? But you want to see Welcome Labrynth. You want to see to be able to bring out your lovely, right? You want to be able to search the traps that you need for whatever the given situation is. Um, so yeah, so that's the end of the control deck core, I suppose. There are other cards that you could say are core, but I guess they're not because like if you recall from like my Subterra deck and like Eldlich decks, right? They use slightly different floodgates. They use slightly different. Well, anyway, so let's get into the normal traps of the deck now. But yeah, this is like a good solid core. Don't mess with these ratios. So we are running 3 copies of Torrential Tribute. So Torrential Tribute. So thanks to Trap Trick, it's 5 copies, right? It's not once per turn. Monster gets summoned, blow up the field. Yeah, this is a great going second card. And if you have Torrential Tribute with Solemn Strike, this combo is so deadly. It's like, oh, they set up a board full of negates. You set both of these, right? They try to summon, you blow up the board. They try to negate, you say no, and that's it. You've broken their board. Like, Torrential Tribute is just so good. It's a normal trap, which means lovely Labrynth can recycle it. You can search it off Trap Trick. And guess what, folks? So Eldlich has a built-in ability that allows Eldlich to revive itself. So even if you Torrential Tribute Eldlich, first of all, it might not die if it was brought back to the field at 3,500. But also, you can revive it, right? If you kill your own Eldlich. Lovely Labrynth doesn't have the ability to revive itself, but the castle does. So Labrynth says, when you activate a non-Labrynth normal trap card, so this is a trigger effect, so it happens on a new chain, special summon a fiend monster from hand or graveyard. So let's say you have Labrynth on the field with a Lovely. You flip Torrential, it blows up the board, Lovely dies, new chain, you activate Labrynth, revive Lovely. So, yeah, you don't really care that you're blowing up your own monsters in this case. Unlike in a Subterra deck where you don't want to Torrential Tribute your Guru, you're perfectly fine Torrential Tributing your own Lovely Labrynth if you want, but also you can just use Torrential Tribute like before you summon your Lovely via Welcome Labrynth, right? So yeah, really good. So we also running 2 copies of Dogmatic Punishment. I mean, this card's a no-brainer. It is hard once per turn. It really shouldn't be, though. I don't know why it is. But yeah, send an extra deck monster to graveyard, pop a card, and if you send Elder and TNTs, you pop another card. So it's a normal trap. You can recycle this every turn. So not only again with Lovely Labrynth, this Dogmatic Punishment will pop 3 cards per turn instead of 2, right? Because you take out a monster, you use Entis to take out another card, be it a front row, a monster or a back row, and then Lovely will trigger on a new chain to pop another card. So Lovely Labrynth enhances all your normal trap abilities to basically do this, right? So like, talking about a punishment, we ain't popping 2 cards now. We're popping 3, folks. That's right, 3. How insane is that? And you can do this every turn because Lovely Labrynth can recycle this from your graveyard back onto your field. Crazy, right? So crazy. All right, and then we have 2 copies of Compulsory Evacuation Device. This card is really good in Labrynth. I always shit on this card before. I said it was not good in Trap Tricks. It was not good in Eldlich. And I was correct because, again, you're trading 1 for 1 here. But guess what? In Labrynth, you're trading 1 for 2, right? Because if you use Compulsory Evac while Lovely's on the field, you also get to pop a card in their hand or field. So you're trading 1 for 2 with no cost. And this card is not hard once per turn. So theoretically, you can run 3 copies. The only reason I don't run 3 copies in this iteration of the deck is because I don't have room for it. So as you'll see later, I need the room. I need the space, the deck space. But if I did not need the room, then I would definitely be running 3 of these because again, it's not once per turn. Also, like I mentioned before, you can literally use this to bounce your own Ariana, right? Back to the hand. And this could be good because let's say you had this set previously. You normal Ariana, use its on summon effect to search. You want to get Welcome Labrynth. They imperm you. You can literally chain Compulse, bounce Ariana back into your hand. The effect goes through. You get a Welcome Labrynth, and you have Ariana next turn to search another card. So, and assuming you search Welcome Labrynth will bring out Lovely, and Lovely will recycle Compulsory anyway. So, yeah, this card happens to have really good synergy with this deck, but I would not recommend it in like a Trap Tricks or Eldlich. So yeah, again, you have to understand the inner workings of the deck in order to get it right. Or like, let's say your Ariana does get ashed, or like you have an Ariana in the field, you activate Welcome Labrynth, they ash you, right? Following turn, you So you can literally watch me do this on my Adventures video. Following turn, you compulsory your Ariana back into your hand. Because Ariana leaves the field, welcome Labrynth from the graveyard recycles itself. Your normal Ariana search the field spell. You're good to go. You have your full board, right? So yeah, compulsory evac, really good, and it's a rare too. That's crazy. And then of course another great use case of this is like you can bounce extra deck monsters back to your opponent's deck. You can bounce access code. You can bounce Mirror Jade, so it doesn't get the Raigeki effect in the end phase. You can bounce Masquerade. You can bounce so many things, right? Doesn't care about branded opening in the graveyard. You can bounce, yeah, just a lot of boss monsters that were made with IP Masquerena, right? So, yeah, so that's normal traps. And then finally, the last two normal traps we are running are 2 copies of Eradicator Epidemic Virus. That's right, folks. This card is so insane right now. So for those of you who haven't been living under a rock, right now in Master Duel, the best, or at least most obnoxious deck, the one that you'll see the most, is Runick. Runick is a deck that loves to spam spell cards, quick play spell cards, force you to mill out your deck, banish the top of your deck, right? This card will completely end Runick's career. This is the Witcher Strike of the format, folks. If you resolve this, you win the game. That's the name of the game, right? So it requires you to tribute a dark monster 2,500 more attack, declare a type. So basically spells or traps, and then they have to destroy all of those cards. So here's the thing, folks. Lovely is 2,900 attack, so you can welcome Labrynth and then immediately Eradicator. Lord of Heavenly Prison is also 3,000 attack, or greater than 2,500. So, by the way, Lord of Heavenly Prison can hit the field, set this card from your deck, and then on the subsequent turn, immediately activate this card, tributing Lord to use its effect. So, yeah, Lord is so much synergy with Eradicator Epidemic Virus. You absolutely want to be running 2 of these because obviously we're running Trap Trick. If it was another format, I would probably replace this card with like maybe a 3rd copy of Compulsory and then like probably 1 other card. But the point is, right now, because Runicks are running around, you need this. Also, this card is great against Branded Despia, right? Branded Despias, they love fusing, and unless they draw a Luber, if you hit them with this card and call spells, they can't fuse, right? You literally have to draw. They literally have to search fusions off the fusion spells off a Luber, and if they don't have that or don't have access to that, they just lose like so much resources. So another thing this is really good for is control deck matchups, right? Let's say you're in a Labrynth Mirror, or you're against an Eldlich player who didn't get the memo that Labrynth is better, or you're against a Trap Trick player. Guess what? You flip this, you tribute, you call trap cards, you blow up all their trap cards, and if they don't have a Solemn Judgment, they're screwed. That's it, right? You just win the matchup. So, yeah, absolutely mandatory that you run 2 copies of this. I can't stress you enough. This card was key in me climbing. I would probably still be stuck in like Diamond 4 if I didn't have this card. Like, seriously, it got me so many free wins. You have no idea. Okay, so those are all the normal trap cards. So let's get into our Floodgates. So Floodgates, you'll find a lot of the usual suspects. We do have 2 copies of Skill Drain. We have 2 copies of Goes and Match, and 2 copies of Rivalry of Warlords. Pretty self-explanatory. Skill Drain is just the best Floodgate in the game. It turns off our Ariana and our Lovely effect on the field, but it doesn't matter because Ariana is a 2,900 beat stick. So if they can't use their monster effects and like get something to beat over Lovely Labrynth, you just win. So yeah, make them bend over backwards to remove this card, and as soon as they do, all of a sudden Lovely Labrynth is online, and you'll be doing more damage to them. So it's like, yeah, obviously, it unlike an Eldlich where this does nothing to us, this does affect, our monsters, but it won't matter because it's just like one of those like, well, okay, under Skill Drain my monsters are good, without Skill Drain, but your monsters like are non-existent, but without Skill Drain my monster is great, right? So yeah, Rivalry is good because all the Labrynth monsters are fiends. Lord is a rock, but that's okay. Same argument with like the Eldlich interaction. It's like, okay, well, Lord is there to protect your back row first and foremost, but Rivalry like just kills. It's really good against Branded Despia, right? It's really good in a lot of matchups where they have different types. Branded Despia is like probably the biggest one you'll have to deal with. Goes and Match. All your monsters are darks. Lord is dark, Lovely is dark, Ariana is dark. This kills Sword Soul, right? Philanderies are still around. If you lock them into Waterbirds, they become severely screwed, right? Yeah, this card is just really good. And finally, last 3 Floodgates that unfortunately Eldlich can't really run effectively, but I think is necessary in this format. 3 copies of Imperial Iron Wall. It reads neither player can banish cards. What does Runick do? Runick banishes cards. You flip this, they can no longer banish cards. You're against Flandres. They can't banish cards. So all their birds go in the graveyard. They can't recycle. They can't use map. They can't do anything, right? Marine Cess. They use a lot of banishing abilities, right? They can banish their Link 3 to special summon monsters. They can banish, right? They use a lot of banishing tools. Sword Soul, Chi banishes. All the Tenyi monsters banish. So this literally shuts off their Tenyi engine completely. Chinging, the most annoying boss monster to deal with, must banish cards from the graveyard in order to keep itself from being destroyed by card effects. If it can't, it just dies. Power Desires, banishes. Freaking Taya banishes to create a token. They can't banish, they can't Taya, right? Changing also has an effect that if a card gets banished, then Changing can banish a card on your field in the graveyard. If this is on face up, they can't banish anything. They're shut off, right? There's so much banishing going on in Yu-Gi-Oh! You have no idea. Orcus, they love banishing. You flip this, you say no banishing. Orcus is another deck that's been running around recently, where because it's supposed to be a good answer to a Runick, right? You flip this, they can't banish. No Heart Pour for you, sorry. Yeah, this card is cracked. Access Code, they need to needs to banish to pop cards on the field. They can't banish Dragon Link. They need to banish to summon Leviathan. They need to banish to summon their Chaos Space Dragons, right? The White Dragon, the Black Dragon. Yeah, there's just a lot of banishing that happens in Dragon Maid. They have to banish their trap from the graveyard in order to special summon their Dragon Maid, right? Like, there's so much banishing going on. This also stops evenly matched. Your opponent's running evenly matched. They try to evenly match you. You chain Imperial Iron Wall. Evenly matched fizzles. Does nothing, right? So, yeah, really good card. Right now, you got to be running 3. You have to be running 3. No exceptions. It's just too good of a card. And guess what, folks? Lord of Heavenly Prison can search this card. And guess what? Lord of Heavenly Prison says you can reveal and set 1 spell trap direct from the deck, but banish it during the end phase of the next turn. However, if you set Imperial Iron Wall and you flip it, it does not get banished. Or if you use Lord to search other Floodgates like Rivalry or Gozen, and Imperial Iron Wall is already on the field, it will not get banished. Or you use Lord of Heavenly Prison to search the field spell, right? You flip it on next turn, but you have Imperial Iron Wall on the field. It does not get banished. It stays on the field, right? So normally Lord, you don't search Floodgates because they go away. You try to search, a card you can use right away, a consumable. Lord of Heavenly Prison often will search Pot of Extravagance, right? But this gives you more options. The fact that Imperial Iron Wall exists gives you more often. Oh, and how could I forget? I forgot to talk about Branded Despia. Brandon Red banishes. You flip this, it can't Brandon Red. Mirror Jade banishes. You flip this, Mirror Jade does nothing. It's just a 3k beater, right? Destiny Tragedy in the graveyard banishes itself to recycle Branded Fusion. Can't do this under Imperial Iron Wall. Albion needs to banish a fuse. Can't do this under Imperial Iron Wall, right? So many applications. Yeah, it's insane. So, yeah, definitely. So that's our main deck. This is all you need. You'll get to Diamond 1. I did. Yeah, roughly 70% win rate. That's about what I got. So yeah, extra deck is going to be a little bit more flexible, and I'll get into why. So let's start with Elder. Let's start with the obvious ones. Elder Entity Entis. You have 3 of these, right? We have 1 copy of Wind Pegasus Agnister, and 1 copy of Cyframe Lord Omega. So cool thing about, so these are your automatic punishment targets, right? Some of them might get banished off extra, but that's okay. But basically, yeah, Entis gives you the power to pop 2 cards. When Pegasus, you pop 1 card if you send it, but if it's in your graveyard, your opponent destroys 1 of your cards, you can bounce 1 of their cards back in the deck. And Omega recycles cards from the graveyard. There's still some players out there running DPE. If it's in the graveyard, bounce DPE back into the extra deck. Done. No more DPE, right? Another great part about Cypher Lord Omega is you can recycle your own cards from your graveyard to your deck, right? Let's say both copies of your field spell got destroyed, right? Omega's in your graveyard, you can literally bounce Omega and the field spell back into your deck, right? What else can you do with Omega? So let's say you're using Lovely Labrynth to set punishment every turn. If you send Omega, right? Omega can recycle itself back into the extra deck, which means, well, which means punishment will always be live. You'll always have a monster that you can send off punishment thanks to Omega. So, yeah, really good. Um, I'm gonna be jumping around a little bit only because the thing about this um, extra deck is I haven't yet 100% settled on what the best cards should be. But yeah, so definitely these 5 insist targets or punishment targets. And I would also say Dark the Dark Charmer. All your monsters are dark. Sometimes you want to revive. Like let's say you have 2 Ariana sitting around doing nothing. Maybe link it into Dark, grab one of their monsters from the grave, and revive it. Maybe you revive DP, maybe revive something else. Yeah, it's good to have a Dark. I want to say you can have an Access Code Talker, but honestly, I haven't really thought about what Link 3 we would even run because Celine would not make sense here. So I don't know. You can have this. You cannot have this. It's a UR, right? Well, let me take it out for now. So cards I like to have or that I had in mind. I had one copy of number 41 Baguska. So this is a rank 4. You can make this with 2 Arianas if you have them sitting around. So put this in some of this in defense position. Your opponent's monster effects on the field are all negated except their link monsters, right? Because this forces all monsters to defense position and negates the effects of all defense position monsters, right? So the activated effects. So yeah, sometimes you just want to stall it out, or you're in a dire pickle. They have the advantage over you. You just summon this with 2 Arianas if you can, right? Other cards I like. I ran the Zodiac package, so that's 1 Chakanine, 1 Borbo, and then 1 Divine Arsenal AA Zeus, right? So again, Arianas are level 4s, so if you want to make a 4 material Zeus, you can make Chakanine, and then overlay Chakanine with Borbo, and then you use Borbo to attack them directly, and then you can make a 4 material Zeus. Bam. Now, obviously, if you have a bunch of your own trap cards, you don't want to do this, but like it's in those situations where like your opponent has the upper hand. For some reason, you have 2 Arianas, or you have access to 2, and then you just want to clear their board. Yeah, just make the Zeus play, right? Yeah, so a lot of these are optional. One package that I wanted to run is Draglublion, so Draglublion with Numeron Dragon. So Draglublion with Numeron Dragon. So your lovely Labrynth is a level 8, right? So if you have access to Draglublion, if you have access to level 8, you can make a rank 8 play, and then Hope Harbinger. So the reason I don't actually have this package in Master Duel, because these are some URs I don't think I want to spend gems on. I don't know. I mean, I have UR gems as you can see here, but I don't know if I really want to spend them on these, right? Because UR gems are like not easy to come by. But yeah, one thing you can have is the Draglublion package, right? Let's say you have 2 lovelies on the field. They can Xyz into Draglublion. Draglublion can summon Numeron Dragon. Numeron Dragon can swing for game at 9,000 attack. So yeah, this is an OTK possibility that you have. But I would say this is not as this will not come up as often as say in the TCG. So Lady Labrynth of the Silver Castle, which is the boss monster we're gonna get in the future, is a lot easier to summon than Lovely, and it's gonna give us access to more level 8s. So maybe in the future we'll run this once we get access to Lady Labrynth. But yeah, I think this is, I don't know, kind of overkill. But it's something you can do, like if you just need an OTK, right? So I do not run this, but instead I do run the rank 10 package, Gustav Max with Lieb. Remember, Lord of the Heavenly Prison is still level 10, and you have 3 of them, right? So you're actually more likely to make a rank 10 in this deck than a rank 8, simply because there's just more Lords of the Heavenly Prison. And once Lord of the Heavenly Prison on the field, it doesn't do anything on the field, whereas Lovely Labrynth does have a really good on-field effect. But sometimes you just want to Xyz Lord, right? And then just OTK with Rail Cannon and Lieb, right? So that's what I have. You could have Tornado Dragon. Tornado Dragon is a good option, rank 4 if you have 2 Arianas to just pop back row. I did not run it because it's a UR, right? But what I did run was a Lightning Chidori. So because Lightning Chidori is an SR. So this one says, when it's Xyz summon, target a set card your opponent controls, returns to the bottom of the deck, and then you can detach an Xyz material, target a face-up card your opponent, return it to the top of the deck. So this gives you like a bounce on summon and then a bounce on detach once per turn. So if you have 2 Arianas, you need to get rid of some stuff on your opponent's field. You can make a Lightning Chidori, I suppose. Yeah, I do run Abyss Dweller. I'm not entirely sure why. I just happen to have Abyss Dweller. I think I pulled it from a pack, right? And Abyss Dweller is just like a floodgate that floodgates your opponent's graveyard effects. And this is really important because, let's say you're against Drytron, right? Their Drytron monsters cannot activate in the graveyard. Their Ben 10 cannot do anything in the graveyard. So there are some deck matchups where this is really good. You're against Tri Brigade, right? They mill Kit or send Kit, does nothing in the graveyard. Send Nerval, does nothing in the graveyard. There are a number of decks where shutting off their graveyard is really important. Even against Miranda Despia, right? They have so many graveyard effects, and Abyss Dweller can just turn that off, right? But guess what, folks? In the future, we're going to get Tier Limits, right? Tier Limits is going to be a deck that's going to come out in Master Duel one day, and they all have graveyard effects. So, maybe it's good to invest in an early Abyss Dweller. Even if you don't play it in this deck, you play it in other decks. I just think it's important to have one of these on hand. So, yeah, I do end up putting Access Code Talker. I never do an Access Code Talker play, but, like, I don't know. I mean, it's possible, like, and plus, since the only Link monster you have is a Dark to Dark Charmer, you're gonna get one pop, and since we don't have a Link 3, it's only gonna go to 4,300. Your mileage may vary. If you don't think it's worth having access code or you don't want to spend the UR on it, don't. Maybe just run a second copy of Dark to Dark Charmer, right? But this is what I ended up going with. Like, so the punishment targets are staying. Dark is definitely staying. The Zeus package probably staying, but you can cut it if you don't want. I think Baguska is like probably one of the better rank 4s that you want to keep. Another card I really wanted to run, but I just didn't pay for it, was Dingirsu, the Orcus of the Evening Star. So this is a rank 8. You summon it, you send a card your opponent controls the graveyard, and it has Destruction Protection. It's a 2600 beater, so you can make this off of 2 Lovelies, but it's a UR. I didn't want to pay for it. Whereas I already had an access code, so yeah. But yeah, feel free to if you have Dingirsu or you like Dingirsu, feel free to put that in. Feel free to put in Tornado Dragon. Feel free to put in the rank 8 package, Dragoobleon with Numeron Dragon and Titanic Hope Harbinger, right? Yeah, it's up to you. So extra deck, very flexible. Just the 6 that I mentioned, probably you should not cut. And of course we still have the rank 10 OTK package, just because Lord of the Heavenly Prison is, a thing, right? So, yeah, that's my Labrynth deck. It'll definitely improve over time. Like I said, I'm very new to the deck. Maybe I'll adjust, in the future, I'll adjust these ratios. Maybe Oriana will go to 2. Maybe this Fuel Spell will go to 1. We'll see. But, yeah, this will definitely get you to Diamond 1. And, obviously, of course, a lot of these tech options, like Impure Iron Wall, Eradicator Epidemic Virus, are very format dependent. And as we get some of the newer trap cards, there's some really powerful trap cards in the OCG, like Weight Balancing, which, I can't wait for, right? There's the big Welcome Labrynth in the OCG as well that we're going to get eventually. So, yeah, I will adjust this deck heavily over time. But for now, I think this is good enough for now. So, all right. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I know you all have been waiting for this for so long. I remember months ago people asked me, "Oh, what about this Labrynth? What about this Labrynth deck?" And I guess I didn't give it a chance, but now, yeah, it's after actually sitting down, looking at it, analyzing it, and trying it out. I'm like, okay, this deck actually has a lot of potential, and definitely feels like it's just gonna be better than Eldlich, especially when we get the new support for it. So, anyway, yeah, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and see you in the next video. Peace.